In this video, we'll discuss the features on Andrew Huberman's face that point to drive, vigor, and energy, as well as the markers on his face that align with his fame and notoriety. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we've got Andrew Huberman, who is very big in the health and wellness space. He's a Stanford doc. He's got the podcast, I think it's called the Huberman Lab. I'm a big fan. I really like what he's doing, and he's been able to bring health to the mainstream in very accessible ways. So a lot of the science that I feel like Americans need to hear in their head to scratch that mental itch to understand why we do the things that we do, he does it in a very accessible way. So I'm a big fan of his work. That being said, we will do a face reading on him. We'll go through some of the things that I'm seeing that are congruent with his life and what he's doing, which is great in Eastern philosophy. That working theory with face reading, again, is that the features that you carry on your face are kind of like a signpost. It's like coded information for things that you probably have some natural proclivities for and that you should be fulfilling. Again, the face being a divine tapestry of sorts. So if you are new to the channel though, please go up here and watch the 5-minute crash course face reading video. That's pretty important so that you understand what face reading is, what it isn't, and so that you fully understand this is not psychic fortune telling. This is practical and applicable, so go watch that video. And if you're liking my content, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and send this to someone who you think will find it interesting. So the first thing I started thinking about when I looked at Huberman's face was his role in the health sphere. So we want to think of the 5 elements: fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. These are 5 phases or rhythms in the external world that show up in humans because we're an extension of the natural world. We're a part of nature. We're not separate from it. So the East was always looking for these harmonics in people's faces, in the symmetry, in the features, all of the features relating to the elements. So I wanted to take his life terrain first. He's prominent in health. And when you're prominent in health, the element that aligns with that is earth. So when I see someone in the health sphere or doing something like that in the wellness sphere, I look for what they call earth features on the face because that means that they are going to be congruent. That means that if they're pursuing health and wellness at scale, that means if they're carrying some earth features, this means that their life path and basically their destiny, what they're doing with their life force, is congruent, which he has. So it was no surprise. A lot of times when we see people go into successful positions, their facial features are congruent with those patterns. So the earth is indicative, the earth shape, okay? The indicator for that is the square. So when we look at Huberman's face, especially without the facial hair, you see this kind of, and I mean this in a good way, kind of the blockhead. There's a square-like quality to his face. He's got some rectangular energy as well, but if you look at his face, there's definitely a square-like framing. Each of the elements have a shape. So when we see that square shape, that means his life is framed by the earth element. The earth element also relates to, also relates to endurance. It also relates to house and home. It also relates to family and dinner parties and eating quality food. So it also has to do with that long-standing power in terms of like a Clydesdale horse. Something that can like use a lot of energy in a slow, lumbering, deliberate way. The wood energy is a bit more fast twitch, but he's also got some wood energy and wood element markers as well, but we'll go into that. But he's definitely got that earth. He's also got a pretty sizable mouth. So if you look at the width of his mouth, that's also an earth feature. It relates to the 5 senses. And it relates to pleasure seeking, but pleasure seeking can take a lot of different forms. It doesn't mean that, anything hedonistic necessarily. Pleasure seeking means that the person genuinely enjoys engaging the senses: sight, scent, sound, touch. They enjoy those things, but also what we see when the mouth is large is also a generous nature. So large-mouthed people, what they saw over thousands of years of documentation and observation was that the large-mouthed people often had these dispositions that were generous in nature. And if you think about what he's doing with his life's work and propagating health and doing all of that, there's a generosity undertone to that. He's taking highly complex things and saying, here's a digestible morsel for you to eat, and that's a beautiful thing. So we definitely see some congruency there. Now, outside of that, what I also noticed was he's got some really good fire. I say like the 3 dominant elements that I see in him are fire, earth, and wood. And so the fire shows up in wrinkling. So he's got some really auspicious, lucky markers. When he smiles, he gets the smile lines, right? These joy lines. My teacher did not like that in the West we call this crow's feet. She hated that. She's like, that's terrible. That's a terrible way to think about it. These are joy lines. When we get that crinkling around the eyes, that means joyful expression, and also joy is pretty heavily ingrained into the person's life terrain. So my guess is Huberman's probably a pretty happy guy. I think he likes what he's doing. He looks happy, at least according to face reading theory. He's genuinely got some joy in his eyes. So I like seeing these marks. Especially after the age of 40, sometimes we get them in our 30s, but he's definitely got them and they show up. So again, that's that fire energy. So he's also got the attention marker, we call dimples. So when a person gets these crinkles through here, anywhere in this region of the face, dimples and the creases here are seen as an attention marker, which means the person digests attention well. It means they're kind of wired for it. Actors can carry this, people that are on stage, people that are in broadcasting. And you don't have to be in a public speaking job to have these, but it means in your life terrain, typically you handle attention well and you like it. So again, he handles attention well. He speaks well. He's articulate. He puts his ideas out in a very clean and concise way. But again, he's got a lot of notoriety. He's become very successful, so he's getting a lot of attention. So with that fire energy, we have to look at the overarching theme. When a person has a lot of fire too, that also means they are, to a degree, predisposition to be famous within their field. Fire relates to future fame and luck. So all of the elements have these lifestyle rhythms according to the East, like these overarching themes that attach to the elements, because there are no original patterns. Everything that humans go through, there's a wheelhouse of things and emotions that people go through. There's seasons that we all go through in our life, given that we live a long life. But with that fire comes fame and notoriety. And so again, we see those markers, pretty interesting. Now, he's also got some pretty sizable wood markers. So the wood is characterized by the jaw and the eyebrows. Okay, you can think of the jaw as the root system of the wood energy. The wood energy is the battering ram. It's the part of us that has vigor, drive, compassion, kindness, and also how well or how much force we use with that battering ram of our message into the world. So when we see a lot of wood, this is usually a high energy person. He's got the markers, strong jaw and full eyebrows, which means Huberman, at least according to face reading theory, homeboy has stamina. He's able to put out a lot of energy. He's also got an earth face, which relates to endurance. So between that earth and wood energy, he's a Stanford doc. Those guys, they work long hours. And it looks like Huberman, I'll bet, has probably worked his ass off to get to where he is, like very, very, very long hours. But he's also built for it. So that works in his favor. But he's got that strong, hardy constitution. He's also got, when I look at his ears, they're not overly large, but they're thick. I can't touch his ears, but with the cartilage, that relates to constitutional strength, what they call jing in Chinese medicine. It relates to our bone strength, our ancestral connection, how much of our gifts we're using and how much resiliency we have in terms of our day-to-day energy, like how resilient we are in using our energy and replenishing it. His ears look thick. They look like kind of like a wrestler's ear. So again, I can't touch them, but definitely they look firm. So the last little bit I'll touch on with that wood component is he's ripped. Like Huberman kept his shirt on for years and he's all tatted up and stuff. And he's voiced it that he was a little not self-conscious. Maybe that's not the right description, but he was aware that, tattoos from a doctor might not be well received, and he's always in a black shirt and he's kept them covered up. But I think he worked out here with Cameron Haynes, I think that's his name, who's the runner. He's been on Joe Rogan, and I think this is the workout he did with him. And when he took his shirt off, everyone's like, holy shit, like Huberman is like not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk, which is very cool to see. But when we see fit people, when you see like definition, when you see a person who has put on muscle, that requires, there's a relationship with the wood energy we have to understand. So if you think on the large umbrella, fitness and people who are fit and who train their bodies and who exercise aggressively, that's all wood energy. It relates to liver energy, how much we drive, how much we push. There's also this relationship to pain. Anyone who knows, I strength train, I do mace training, I swing, implements all the time. It hurts. Anyone who works out knows that there's a pain association with that. And the people that are able to kind of have that grit and push through and deal with the pain, that's all strong wood metrics. So it shows up in his body morphology, as well as in the jaw and in the eyebrows. The last little thing here I'll touch on, since I'm seeing it right here, is that, facial hair. I don't talk about facial hair a lot in face reading, but we have to think the face, and we all face read. We're all looking at people's faces. We're all reading faces from the day we are born, babies reading parents' faces and everyone around us, till the day we die. We're reading faces, social cues. And we all do it. And when we change the shape of our face through facial hair, whether we know it or not, we're playing with some subconscious markers. There's usually a drive and a reason why we put facial hair. So there's lots of reasons. Women say men with, 5 o'clock shadow, they typically find more attractive. Through battle, they've talked about this historically. When the Vikings and these people had these big beards, it was also like a defense mechanism, because if something hit an implement was to hit the beard or the face with a thick beard, it deflected a little bit. It actually acted as a form of protection. And so the point is, what I'm getting at is that, it's the same reason Jordan Peterson talks about when women wear makeup too. Why do women put red lipstick and, like the coloring on their cheeks? It's to show the state. There's a component, at the psychological level about arousal. That's what happens when we get aroused, that things become flush, we blush. And so these subconscious markers of why we want attention, we put makeup on to look a certain way. We grow facial hair, whether we know it or not. The East says there's some subconscious markers in terms of us wanting a different look, right? It changes the shape of our face. So his face over the years, he's got the Leonidas beard. And we see that point, right? What that is kind of like, it's like a faux or like mock chin. And when we see that, if his chin were to look like that in real life, like a chin that came down to a point, that Leonidas 300 chin, that the soldiers used to wear like that, when it comes down like that, what that points to is willpower. When we see a big dominant chin on someone, it's all about willpower and pushing. And then an accentuated jaw, that's about vigor, drive, and the root system of the wood energy. It means like we have tremendous grit and determination. And I think how hard he's pushing into the world, this is sort of like a subconscious external marker of that reflection of what's going on in his psyche. So that's the stuff I saw in Huberman. I will touch on this because I just saw it when I was looking at his face. He's got these really good smile lines, the joy lines, but he's also got the lines that kind of bleed down into the cheek, which is actually a sadness marker. So, when we see these, it's almost like tears being carved into the face. Jordan Peterson has these too, and he's struggled with depression and sadness and a lot of other, very heavy emotions. I don't know what Huberman has gone through, but his face says, yeah, maybe even some unresolved sadness or very real prolonged bouts of sadness at some point in his life that, that could be from the past, could be present. I don't know. This is the thing when I'm working with somebody, I'm not trying to be predictive. I'm just saying, hey, here's the pattern. This is what the marks say. And, is this true for you? Are you unhappy right now, or were you in the past? Because in the end, we want to look at the features too as a way to access trauma. If we can use the face, wrinkles and stuff, they form on the face as a result of us emoting, smiling, thinking, doing things like that. It's a marker for emotionality. And so when we see that on the face, when we see those marks, we want to just, access that and say, hey, yeah, are there any trauma points here along the way? Because trauma blocks life force in the East. And there's a lot of Western research that you could look up around that very idea, but you want to think that if we have unresolved trauma, the rates of cancer in those people go up as well. There's something that happens to our physiology. We're not designed to sit on pent-up emotion. It's very bad for us. So again, I don't think he's harboring anything that looks, he's not leaking. He doesn't have any of the red flags on the face that would have me really concerned if he were my client and lifestyle client. The point I'm getting at is that I just see these markers for sadness, so I'd be curious. And for what it's worth, a lot of people in the healing field, what they call the archetype of the wounded healer, there's a lot of people who carry a lot of deep wounds, and that's why they're in the healing field. It's very, very common. When I was in acupuncture school, I saw that a lot. People that were trying to essentially heal themselves by learning how to heal others, or at least support in the healing process of others. So that's everything I've got for Huberman. If you guys have questions, comments, please put them below. And if there's someone else you'd like me to read, please let me know. Thanks for your time as always.